Welcome. My name is Ben Whitby. I am a physics geek that ended up in corporate investment banking. I went down the crypto rabbit hole in 2013 and I haven't really come back. In 2013, I was working for HSBC and I came across the Bitcoin white paper, and there was this guy that put 50 Canadian dollars into a RoboCoin ATM in Vancouver. And he happened to work for HSBC at the time. And it was my job to go and walk him around the car park and explain to him why HSBC doesn't invest in Bitcoin, which is what the headline of Wired wrote at the time, which is going to cause all sorts of different challenges and problems. But that really kind of took me down the rabbit hole, and everybody's got their own rabbit hole story. I tried to move the needle within HSBC for 4 years before I eventually gave up. And I found a team based in London that had done an ICO called Token Card. They've subsequently rebranded to Monolith, but it was a great experience. And we came out and we had a treasury full of ETH. I think that we were the 6th team that had done an ICO in the Ethereum blockchain. So it was a very special time. And when we were trying to form this company, trying to do this amazing thing, which was, we actually did it. We built the world's first smart contract wallet with a Visa card. We did all the negotiations with Visa. We had one real problem. And that problem was that we had this treasury of ETH that we were managing to run our company. We were managing to run our team. And yet we had no ability to really govern those assets other than keeping them on a ledger or a Trezor with 12 words. So at one point, our CFO had a ledger with $108 million worth of assets that he was taking home every night, which is crazy when you think about that. You just can't run an organization where your whole company is dependent on one person not getting mugged where their private seed is stolen. So, there was a massive problem that needed to be solved in terms of these teams that were going to tread in our footsteps and do an ICO. So I left the Monolith team in 2018 when I met the founders of Credo, Anthony and Brian. And we were in having lunch and we talked about the various different challenges. I recapped this story to them. And Brian told me, hey man, there's this amazing piece of technology called MPC and BLS signatures, and I think I've got a way to crack it. And so over the next 2 years, we got out into the market and we built a wallet that is based on MPC, and so can sign ECDSA signatures, which means we can sign against any blockchain that's currently out there at the moment. And we abstracted that using the BLS framework that Mary's just described from the Ethereum Foundation. We abstracted that through BLS and using blockchain technology into governance. So we had a wallet that could store assets where my Token Card Monolith CEO, or CFO at the time, could share and delegate governance between the team. So we got a threshold-based sector over that wallet structure. Now, we've been incredibly fortunate, if I just step forwards and to the next, go back one. We've been incredibly fortunate in terms of our journey about how we've raised funds, we've come to this space. We've managed to be supported by some of the most amazing teams in the crypto ecosystem. We are very close and great partners with MetaMask Institutional, who have selected us as one of their partners to run the governance over the MMI wallets. And we've signed up close to 300 hedge funds, family offices, and various different types of firms that are in the crypto space today, doing crypto business today, and finding the challenges that I just described with my old team as a significant limiting factor in terms of the way that they run their assets. And the only other way that they can do this today, which slows them down massively, is by giving their assets up to centralized third parties. And that's just not going to happen, right? So what we've got is we've really kind of got the challenge of finding out how we manage this normal business activity in a crypto space. How do we regulate the authorization of transactions? How do we define the governance model over your team when your team changes maybe on a day-to-day basis? People get sick, people leave, people get promoted, people get fired. You need to have a very flexible and dynamic kind of way to manage those policies. And how do we manage to build a system and build a technology layer that enables firms from the biggest banks to the smallest teams to be able to really utilize the technology and make sure that it passes all of the due diligence. Now, I think we're on the right direction here. Of those 300 firms that have signed up today, and that number is growing every day. In fact, I'm probably massively out of date. We transacted $3 billion worth of transactions last month. $3 billion. And that, for me, is staggering. Absolutely staggering. With the various different positions that we've got, as the whole world starts to tokenize, Ticketmaster has issued close to $100 million worth of tickets in the NFT space. Nike did an NFT project where they've monetized well over $150 million of NFT sales. This is going to be a very real thing for enterprises, for financial institutions, and there's an awful lot more to come. So I'm going to stop there. I hope I've got you quite excited about the Qredo layer of governance and what and why we're doing it. I'm going to pass over to Graham. Graham's going to tell you a little bit more about the how and the what of what we do, and hopefully it will build on kind of Mary's position.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. And also my first time doing this sort of thing, so tremendously exciting to see all of you this evening. Developers, enthusiasts, entrepreneurs, all pioneers of the Web3 frontier. Believers in decentralization, the democratization of finance, advocates for censorship resistance and freedom of speech. Unless, of course, you're from PayPal. Now, today, I'm going to tell you a story. And it's a tale of two journeys. I will try and abridge the story because I know you're probably all anxious to get to the pub. But the first journey is something that's close to my heart, having lived through it both personally and professionally as a network architect for many years. It's the story of what we would call Web 1 and Web 2. And I joined IBM in '99, just in time for the dreaded millennium bug, which turned out to be a huge nothing burger. But don't worry, because the dot-com bubble burst shortly after. And interestingly, I took a job at Credo just in time for this bear market cycle. So I'll let you know my next career move in advance on LinkedIn. Just short everything connected with that industry, and you can go to the beach. So the second journey, as you may have guessed, is one we're all on together. It's a journey of building our decentralized future on Web3. So how do these journeys coalesce, intertwine to tell you something meaningful? Next slide, please. So over the years, the industry started... Oh, that's the right slide. Sorry, go back. Yeah. First, we've got to address some elephants in the room. Just this year, we've had multiple hacks on Ronin Bridge, the Wormhole Bridge, Binance Smart Chain, Harmony One, amongst others. We've seen crashes and cascading liquidations from some of our not-so-favourite actors at 3AC, Voyager, Celsius, and of course Terra. We have private key management, the very essence of authorizing Web3 transactions, billions of dollars of assets with one private key. One key to hack, one key to lose, one single point of failure. And these represent a clear risk to the integrity of Web3. And certainly makes me think, what can we do better? How can we improve? So the industry started evolving its approach to custody via protecting our assets through cold storage. And it's still a widely adopted practice today. And it gives us a degree of protection. But to superimpose this onto our first journey, it's a little like disconnecting your 90s modem and PC because you're worried you might get a virus or the art images you downloaded may get stolen. And those art images, by the way, they took an agonizingly long time to download. But this mechanism, when we apply it to digital assets, it's capital inefficient. Your funds are illiquid. And bringing them online again, depending on your custodian, it can be a time-consuming and cumbersome process. So, again, we needed to improve our approach. Introducing multisig. So, multisig removed the dependency of a single private key. For the first time, it gave us thresholds, as Mary was describing. And it was a rudimentary attempt at governance, where if enough approvers sign off on a transaction and meets the threshold, it's approved, and a signature is created, and your transaction is on its way. But it wasn't really the silver bullet that the industry kind of is looking for, because multi-sig schemes are prone to human error. And you don't have to look much further than the Ronin bridge hack earlier this year for evidence of this, where enough private keys to meet a threshold were stored on one validator node. And that was a very costly lesson in private key management. Now, one of the issues with multisig is it doesn't really have the concept of who has the keys, how they acquired them, or possess any real means of verification. To layer into our first journey here, the early days of the internet saw the evolution of IP access lists, where only network A could talk to network B, and that was cool. But they didn't really have any contextual information of who was behind those networks, of what they were really doing, or if their application was behaving legitimately. They, much like multisig, were just part of the journey, part of the evolution. Introducing MPC, multi-party computation. And I'm so glad I was after Mary. So, leveraging MPC, we can sign transactions via multiple sharded secrets coming together. In other words, there is no private key. And MPC, when combined with governance, is a powerful tool to improve the integrity of transactions and governance. But there's more nuance than that, because what I would call the first-gen MPC custodian providers, they would run the governance layer on a database. And this is to an extent where our journeys intertwine, because databases even are wonderful things. You can create, read, update, delete information, but they did then and still do today have the same problem. They pose a security risk. They're centralized. Data only needs to be changed once and in one place. Now, security by design architecture today means we cocoon them with firewalls, we spread them across DMZs, we have security software to mitigate against known exploits. But think of these countermeasures as building castle walls to protect the crown jewels. But all the time, you still have that same inherent Achilles heel. An attacker only needs to strike once and in one place. And of course, what if our bad actor is already inside the castle walls? And a lot of IT network attacks originate this way. One bad actor, one rogue administrator, indeed one incompetent administrator, and you can lose your crown jewels. In network architecture parlance, you're only as strong as the weakest link in your design. And let's look at a different model, what I'd like to call a next-gen MPC custody model. And here, it's one that tries to embrace the ethos, verify, don't trust. And instead of leveraging a database to perform governance, this is replaced by a blockchain. Just happens to be, of course, the Qredo blockchain. And this makes a difference because it makes our governance consensus-driven. There's no longer a centralized database or honeypot to attack. And there's a lot going on in this diagram, so let's just take it left to right. We have an approval layer, and these approvers could be human or programmatic agents, and these are the only nodes that are permitted to submit governance data and workflows to the blockchain. And the governance layer itself exists on-chain, and it includes all kinds of role-based access. We can apply different policies to various wallets, and crucially, changes to these policies also need to pass through the same governance workflows as transactions. So there is no out-of-band easy hack to this. The MPC execution layer is where the secrets converge to create signatures to broadcast out to whichever blockchain we're talking about. And this means, this decoupling of the architectures means we can have multiple changes occurring at the governance layer. We can have people coming, people going, policies changing, thresholds changing, all with no interruption to the MPC secrets or the wallet structure. And the only thing that can drive executions on the MPC layer is that governance layer. Nothing else can instantiate execution of MPC secrets. So how does this compare to our Web 1 and Web 2 journey? Well, oh, that one, sorry, Ben. I haven't quite finished waffling yet. Well, IT network security started implementing something called Layer 7 firewalls, and they had the ability to regulate traffic beyond which network was talking to which or what protocol happened to be used. But crucially, it gave insights into what the traffic meant, who was behind the network, and it had the ability to verify their application was behaving legitimately. It gave us an extra layer of intelligence to safeguard against attack. And this is exactly what we do here. We achieve intelligent security via blockchain and cryptography to provide this extra layer of defense. Okay. So I'll talk a little bit about cryptography. Thankfully my approach is story-driven. So BLS is used to securely link governance agents to the Qredo network. And just a quick story about encryption that I personally find fascinating, and it relates to something called Netscape Navigator in the 1990s. I'm not sure if any of you guys have ever heard of that, or I'm just showing my age here. But they tried to ship and export encryption with their browser. And at the time, encryption was actually classified by the US authorities as a munition, alongside sarin nerve gas and Tomahawk cruise missiles. And partially due to its legacy in military history, it was considered a weapon. And they would go before Congress, and they were investigated by the NSA all the time, insisting that, no, one day somebody's going to use encryption, everybody's going to use encryption to do their shopping or book holidays. And it was a long, drawn-out sequence of events, but ultimately the US government relented, perhaps on the grounds that they were basically trying to ban mathematics. And there are some obvious parallels with our two journeys, because the same opposing arguments are rehashed and resurface again decades later. And the path to acceptance, it reminds me of a quote from Jeff Booth's excellent book, The Price of Tomorrow, where he states, innovation is unstoppable. Now, MPC, as we know, it removes the risks and dependencies associated with a single private key, and it does this via sharded secrets. I want to take just a moment to talk about Qredo's MPC implementation and high availability. So Qredo run 24 MPC nodes as HSMs, or high security modules, split across 6 data centers. Now, this creates a network that can withstand simultaneous outages at 4 out of these 6 sites. So it's highly available. And to tie this back into our first journey, it wasn't uncommon for internet services, sometimes important ones in the early days, to be running on a Pentium 386 and Windows stuffed under someone's desk with, in an office somewhere. And maybe the cleaner would come along at night and pull the power cable, or your disk would stop spinning, or more often than not, though, Windows crashed. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I've always been a Unix guy. But the network industry, it learned from these lessons. The high availability became more accessible, and the industry started to embrace that. And you can now find this in things like cloud technology and elastic scalability, all kinds of lessons that we've learned during our first journey. We don't need to repeat in Web3 because we can already do better. So that's why at Qredo we built this network from the ground up with these security by design principles. That's why we implement these advances in cryptographic security and leverage high availability networks on our blockchain and MPC. Next slide, please. So, how do you use Qredo? How do you use our MPC wallets with the governance structure and secure signing with Web3? Well, we have a few different options. We have a MetaMask Institutional wallet, where we partner with Consensus to give you access to all of the EVM chains. And this is a comparable experience to anybody who's ever used MetaMask Orange. But you get the added security, that institutional grade security that lets you have thresholds and signing schemes and policies. And of course, you get the added assurance of the Qredo MPC network actually signing your transactions. We also have WalletConnect, which is coming available to both institutions and retail users. Again, you have the same degree of governance and MPC signatures here as you do with MMI. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the Qredo Network, because this for me is one of the big exciting things that Qredo have that's a paradigm shift, if you like, because it's a unique blockchain. It's a layer 2 network, but it's built on top of multiple underlying layer 1s. It's built on top of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, Solana, Algorand, Polkadot. We'll soon have Arbitrum, Optimism, Polygon, and more. Now, when you have a layer 2 wallet, it gives you some special abilities. It gives you the ability to execute OTC trades, or perform atomic swaps, or even transfer between other Qredo wallets. And you can accomplish all of this with instant settlement and also vastly reduced gas fees if you can compare them to layer 1 gas fees. Now, you can also interface with the world of CeFi on layer 2 through exchanges and liquidity providers. And every MPC wallet that is created on the network is self-custody, because you control the BLS governance keys necessary to release transactions. So we are not a custodian as such. We are a technology provider, a partner. Now, what you also get is 100% provable liquidity, which, if you consider some of the earlier examples of the crashes and liquidations, a lot of those were founded on opaque liquidity, particularly with Celsius, for example, where they would rehypothecate your assets. Now, even if you have a layer 2 network, a layer 2 wallet on Qredo, we have our own blockchain explorer that is fully transparent, where you can prove assets are there 100% of the time. Please. So I'd just like to give you a bit of an indication about what's next and what's coming up on the Qredo roadmap and our vision for the future. So we have DeFi API wallets and approver agent software, and combine these two together, and we're able to support fully programmatic solutions. So you may have high-frequency traders or someone may have a certain algorithm, or insert your reason here. They want to behave and interact with us in a programmatic fashion. And these two features support that. We have computational policies, which enrich and improve the governance workflows and policies that we can create, including smart contract whitelisting. We've got forthcoming integrations with Solana and Cosmos DeFi wallets. We also have Qredo markets with features such as power swaps, Glassdoor, we have fiat ramps, we have liquidity providers coming on board, and all of these incentivize the utility of the Qredo Layer 2 network. Now, over the longer term, our vision, again, is one of decentralization, and that's why we have a validator node federation program, where we will introduce third-party validator nodes to the Qredo blockchain to increase decentralization. We also believe in DAO-based governance, ultimately, to give our community the power to enact decisions. And we also want to get to a stage where our Layer 2 network is open and permissionless, where developers can come and build their own protocols, drop them on top of the Qredo Layer 2 network, and enjoy all of the benefits that it has to offer. So in summary, I think it's inevitable that the world of Web3 is going to innovate, evolve, and build. And that's also our plan, to innovate, evolve, and build, and decentralize. And the lesson that I think we can all learn here is that protecting your assets along the way is more than a worthwhile exercise. It's a necessity. So it's the end of the story, but only the start of the second journey. And it's been a big pleasure speaking in front of all of you tonight. It really has. And just in case you were wondering, if you have any burning or very difficult technical questions, I am quite close to the door. So thank you very much.